So we're going to start with Pauline Scott. She's Managing Director of the Tigers Training and Learning Providers organisation, and she's also manager of Lullaby Lane Nurseries with Ottoman Bearsden and Mulcahy. Very much an advocate of attachment-led practice, very much involved in the ACE-aware nation movement as well. And Pauline, I'm going to hand over to you now for you to do your screen share bit.
Great, thanks very much, Sue. Okay, Sue, can I just correct something that you said before I start?
Oh, please do.
No, is that I do not manage the nursery day in, day out anymore. I have two fantastic leaders who do that, Charlene and Donna, and they're building a leadership team underneath them. What is important to say is that when we first opened the nursery in 2013, I absolutely was in there every single day. I tell people I learned my trade, I done my apprenticeship, I learned from the people around about me. And as the nursery has grown and developed, we've got a great team who lead day in and day out. So just to highlight the fantastic work that they're doing too. So thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you to Sue and to Kate for inviting me along. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today. And I'm really happy to be able to just talk about some of our practice at Lullaby Lane. And, you know, I was on a conference on Thursday, and the presenter had actually said something about experts. And I started my presentation by saying, I'm not an expert in anything, actually. I'm just really somebody that's really fascinated by human behaviour, and starting with our children, right up to the adults, thinking about myself as well. So I'm really innately fascinated by human behaviour and thinking about how we present in relationships. And I'm learning all the time, and I love learning. So my presentation today, I wanted to talk about how do we realise the ambition, and if we are going to realise ambition, my opinion is that we must place relationships at the heart of all our practice and our policies. And what I'd like to take us through today, if I can, and I'm very conscious of my time, so I will try and get through this as fast as I can, is that I think we need cultural transformation to recognise the impact of early childhood experiences. I don't think we do that enough. I don't think we understand as a nation, as a culture, really the impact, the biological impact of our experiences in childhood and how they stay in our body throughout the rest of our lives, how they come into our adult lives and how they present in our daily relationships with ourselves and others. And I think that is going to require real cultural change to realise that. I'd like to talk a wee bit through our Daring Ventures, and I've put in brackets here confidence programme. It is a training and development programme, but ultimately when we really reflected on it, we would call it a confidence programme for our team. And I just want to give some examples of what our attachment-led practice looks like. So how we take the theory of attachment and we translate that into daily practice. But I wanted to start here with this image, and I was really thinking about how did I learn about attachment? Where did that come from? When we opened up Lullaby Lane in 2013, I knew nothing about attachment theory. I didn't know the science. I opened up the nursery because we had experience through Tigers of delivering within that sector. And ultimately what I did was I worked from instinct. And the image there is actually my mum. And that's my mum with my daughter and with my nephew. And the person that I learned about attachment and love was my mum. And my mum adored children. She used to say to me all the time, Pauline, there is no such thing as bad children. Children are innocent. They deserve a voice. We need to talk to children as human beings. She taught me all of that. And that's where I learned my love of children and how to treat children. So when we opened Lullaby Lane, I very much took those principles of my family culture and I applied that across the nursery. And what I recognised as I started to learn more about the science behind that was that actually, even through all of the love that I experienced as a child, all of that love and support that my mother wrapped around us, actually, when I learned about attachment theory, I recognised I wasn't even insecurely attached. I don't have a secure attachment style. So even from love, we can create insecurities. We can, even from a place of good intention, we can cause damage for children, we can cause more difficulty for children. So what I'm trying to help us to think about is the cultures that start within our families, which is really what teaches us about love. We apply that through the rest of our lives without really understanding why we behave the way we behave. And what I wanted to understand was, how do we really take that science? How do we learn all the neuroscience that's out there, early brain development, everything that we know that's there, and how do we think about what that looks like in daily practice? Because if you had come into Lullaby Lane in 2013-14, no child at Lullaby Lane would have been crying. I would not have allowed that. I would have been out on the floor immediately saying, why is that child crying? Why are they upset? What are we doing about it? Because I would have shut down that feeling. I would have shut down that emotion. I would have not wanted that child to be upset. And that was because I couldn't cope with the pain of children because of my attachment style, because of what I had learned from my mum. So in fact, even through all of her love, my mum stopped us experiencing pain. She stopped us taking those daring ventures. She stopped us being able to explore. And I was doing that at Lullaby Lane. I was stopping the children taking those daring ventures. I was stopping the children exploring. I was stopping them taking risks because I didn't want them to hurt themselves. So what I've done in my reflections is recognize that actually my attachment style, my early childhood experiences shaped our team, shaped our culture and our practice within the nursery. And to change that, I had to learn more about it. So then I met a new friend in my life, Dr. Suzanne Zdyke. And Suzanne came into our nursery and we talked about, okay, we're doing this love, we talk about cuddling children, we talk about working from an instinct, that children are away from their parents every day. And Suzanne talked about attachment theory. And I said, okay, right, this is just fascinating to me. It makes total sense. What you're saying about the science that's out there is exactly what we're trying to do in day-to-day practice. And we had done quite a number of training sessions with Suzanne. The team were getting up to speed with it, but it really wasn't embedded in culture. And I had went back to Donna and to Charlene and said, what is it that we need? And they kept coming back and saying they need more knowledge because they need more confidence. The whole team, Pauline, needs that confidence to be able to really apply this every day and know why they're doing it. Not just that they're doing it, but to really understand why they're doing it. So we had taken that reflection and I went back to Suzanne and said, okay, could we come up with something that's more intense, that's over a longer period of time? This is not about going on a one-day offset away from the nursery. We'll do a half-day workshop and then we know all about attachment theory. If we're really going to call ourselves an attachment-led nursery, we really need to steep this through everything that we do, and every single person in our nursery needs to understand this. Because we've got 37 in our team now, and those 37 people all come from different families and from different cultures. They bring that to their work every single day. And some of that might be positive, some of it might be more challenging, but how do we ensure that that is really, really consistent across our team? So what we agreed was we were going to create a year-long training program. We were going to take 6 different concepts of attachment theory and really break that down, really understand all of the science behind it, and really help our team to build their confidence, to then think about, now that you've got the knowledge, how do we apply that every single day? How do we apply that with our families, with our children, for our leadership team? How do we apply that with our team? Which becomes really, really important, starting with the adults that are present in the life of the children. And then how are we going to articulate that? Because when we placed ourselves and said, we put attachment at the heart of our practice, if other people don't understand that, and I'm probably talking about regulatory bodies, if they don't understand that, when they come into our, all they see is little moments of cuteness. They don't necessarily see the depth of those moments of interactions between our team and our children. So if you don't have that knowledge, some things just look sweet, they just look cute, but you don't actually realize the depth of what is happening and how it is having this biological impact on our children now, and how that will stay in their bodies and present in their bodies later in life at moments when they are having anxiety or they're having fears. So what we needed to do was to take away from this idea, okay, you go to Lullaby Lane for your love, and then you go to big proper nursery for all the academic and all the learning. So what we wanted our team to be able to do is really have that confidence, to really be steeped in that knowledge, so that when they were talking to anybody, they could articulate it. And that's with our parents, that's with our wider community, with local schools, for example, and of course, again, with regulatory bodies. And that is just the different topics that we have covered in year one. And I'm delighted to tell you we're now into our second year, and we continue to deliver that programme even through lockdown, through COVID. We do most of those in Zoom calls. We have got such a fantastic team that they join us on a Saturday morning once a month to talk about child development, which is just an absolute accolade to their commitment and dedication. And I just wanted to put this up because this is brain synapses. And what I wanted to just highlight here is this is the level of detail that our team are going into. This is primarily a group of women. We have one man that works within our team, and I hope we can get more men, and I'm sure Cameron will touch on that. But this is primarily a group of women who have come into work in early years, who tell me stories about that people told them, go and work with children because you're not very clever, because you didn't really do that well at school. And what I want to keep shining a light on for our team, and I think Suzanne helps me to do that strongly, is to say that actually you're looking at some of the most in-depth neuroscience here. You're looking at some complex theories. You are looking at science. You are really steeping yourself in understanding human behavior. This is highly articulate work. It takes lots of intelligence, and it takes lots of real deep thinking about it. And I think this PowerPoint screen just shows that this is the kind of detail that we're looking at, even on a Saturday morning when some of our team, I think, are still sitting in their jammies. And I just wanted to highlight some of the things very briefly of what we do for our children and for our families. So we talk an awful lot about early connection with our families, even during pregnancy, because lots of you will know now that families sign up to nurseries even when they're still pregnant. And we immediately say to those families, you are now part of the Lullaby Lane family. You are now part of this community. You get all correspondence. You can come to any events that we're having, anything that we are hosting. We will keep sending information out to you. You are welcome just to come in and see us at any point. I know that's got a little bit harder through COVID, but there's ways of managing that. You know, always feel free to pick up the phone, because some of our children might not even be joining us until they're maybe more about 9-12 months now. So it's really important that while those little brains are developing so rapidly, even at pre-birth, that the parents are getting this information. So we're helping to try and get that out to them as early as we possibly can. And then once we know the children are due to join us, we do unlimited getting to know you sessions. And it's really getting to know the family. It's starting with building a relationship with the adult that is in their life. So with their parent, with their family member first, that becomes so important. If the children can see that there becomes a strength and a confidence and a trust between the adults in their life, that is going to make it much easier at transition when parents are then going back to work and they're now staying with their key person. So we know months in advance, this is who the key person is going to be. And then they start to build that relationship with the parents. They go out and they go into, we were doing lots of home visits for all of our children. Our children got home visits. We've had to stop that sadly during COVID. But what we did have to do is adapt that. And what we did was to create a safe space, is that we created space within our nurseries where just the family and the child could come in and spend time with their key person, so that there wasn't all that overwhelm, that sensory overload with other children there, too daunting, too overwhelming for our children. So we created a small, safe, quiet space that the families could come in with their children and get to just know the environment and get to know their key person. And we give all our families a connection bag when they start with us, to really, again, understand our ethos. One, so as they can make an informed decision, and two, so as they can learn more about it. So Suzanne's book, saber-toothed tigers and teddy bears, that is just standard that we give that. We've bought multiple copies of that book, and that's just standard that we give that to all our families. And I'm sitting here thinking maybe we should be doing the same with Play as we go forward. And we create lots of opportunity for family connections. And I've put in this big bold here, celebration events, i.e. When children are going to school, should we be still creating a space, even during COVID, for our children to come together, our families to come together, our community to come together to celebrate this really significant transition in our children's life. And we have made the decision to say, yes, that's what we're going to do. I have wrote to our local authority. I put an announcement out on Twitter to say that I am not asking for anybody's permission to do that, not meaning I'm just trying to break the rules, meaning that I'm not asking anybody else to take responsibility for that. I am absolutely willing to take responsibility that we will hold our children's celebration event for them leaving Lullaby Lane to go to school. Our children have experienced an obscene amount of uncertainty, an uncertainty in life that actually is really quite overwhelming for some of them. We need to create moments, those rituals, where we can bring our children back to centre, where we can ground them again, where they can feel safe. And that is what rituals do. So we have made the decision that we're going to go ahead with our celebration event this year. That's really important to us. And we've taught our children, and we continue to teach our children body-based techniques. So introducing yoga, introducing mindfulness to our children, putting that in as part of daily practice. And again, that's really important, is that we're modelling and teaching for our children in terms of body-based techniques, but also a key thing for us is to really name emotions. What is it that our children are feeling? How do we give them the language? We talk all the time about language. How do we give children the language to understand, first of all, through body-based, what is it I'm feeling? Where am I feeling it in my body? How can I relax my body? And how can I tell the adults that are in my life exactly what it is that I'm feeling? And lots of us adults know that we're not even very good at doing that if we haven't been taught it. So we're trying to build those skills in our children and that confidence about their bodies in our children at those very, very young ages, because that will stay with them through their life. And one of the things that we created early on was a look beyond the behaviour policy. And that came from the influence of our friend and colleague, Jane Evans, that actually, and it was to replace a behaviour management policy. We don't talk about behaviour management at all. We have an understanding that all behaviour is communication. What is it that the child is telling us? So one of our values is to stay curious. What is happening for that child? Asking ourselves, what do we think created that behaviour? What was it that we're fearful of? To really look behind it and not to ever chastise children. You know, many of our team that have joined us through the years from other early year settings, one of the things they talk about often is that if an incident's happened where the children have come into conflict, we never punish a child. We offer love and we offer support to both of the children at the same time. So it always requires support from somebody else in the team to offer both the children a calmness, to be with them, to be present, to hold them in that moment. And that has created some conflict in people's thinking to say, well, why would you do that if they've done something that is bad, something that is naughty? And we keep trying to explain, but that's not what is happening in that moment. That child has been overwhelmed by their emotions, and in this moment there is fear that's driving this behaviour, there's anxiety, and this is when they really need our love at the most. So both the children in those incidents would get love and affection. And I just want you to show, just through some images, of how we've taken the science, the knowledge, and how we put that into practice. And this was our connection through COVID. We did stay open through the whole of COVID for children of key workers. And sadly, lots of our children could not come to nursery. You know, this is about 100 bags, connection bags that were created by our team. And there's different little activities in there. There's photographs of their key person. We can see that Nathan there is sitting with a picture of Fiona. He's looking at his key ring. He's remembering that she's still there. There's little teddy bears in there for them just to hold, to have something tactile that they can touch. And our team went away out and actually hand delivered these to all of our families. And our little fella there on the bottom right hand corner, that's him saying his key worker who's just walked up the drive to give them those connection bags. We've done lots around videos, saying hello to our children, singing songs that they love, doing yoga sessions with them, just with the knowledge that actually if we had partied from the children's lives and they hadn't seen us, they would have been trying to make sense of that. And in some way they would have thought that they had lost us, that there had been a bereavement. Their body would have told them there had been a bereavement. It was really important for us to think about how do we stay connected. But if we didn't know the science, we wouldn't have known how to do that. And this is just examples of how our children are taking those daring ventures from an emotionally secure base. And I know when Cameron speaks, he will talk lots about exploration and taking risk. And this is a prime example. We can see on the left-hand side, children going up that big giant hill that we have at Mulgai, which will seem a huge hill to them, and taking those big daring ventures. Children cannot explore, they cannot learn if they do not have somebody that they feel emotionally connected to and emotionally safe with. They will not take the learning, they will be sitting in that survival part of their brain, and they will not be able to go into that cortex part of their brain. They will not be able to go and take risk. They will not be able to take learning experiences. So we know that we have to start with the regulation first, and then the relate, and then our children can go out and have daring adventures. But they look quite different in those three pictures that I've put up there. So the picture in the middle is one of our wee ones who's taken a daring venture by holding a wee snail in her hand. And you can see by the expression on her face that she's not sure about it at all, but she's putting her eyes up to her key person to say, is this safe? And what I can see in that moment is, okay, I'm looking at you for guidance. Can I trust this? It's safe. And if this gets too much for me, are you going to be there to help me and to support me? And the picture on the right-hand side, this is a picture of a FaceTime screenshot, and this is two of our children in nursery who have become really good friends with each other, and it's just lovely that they're actually wearing the same top. And the team had put this out on social media to highlight that the two children were in the same playroom, and one of the children just developmentally was ready to move to the next playroom, and the other child wasn't, his wee friend wasn't. The team are creating space and time to allow them to FaceTime each other, to allow them to take their daring ventures, i.e. going off into the big playroom, but still knowing that their friends are there. Still, the team are thinking about this in that level of detail. How do they create that bond, keep that connection, knowing that that will be scary for that child? That's another big transition for them. And so often we don't think about those moments. They don't seem big because they don't seem big adult problems, big adult anxieties, but they're huge for our children. And again, I was really taken that the team, and this did not come from me, and this is why I wanted to highlight at the start, this happens from the team, because they know about this, that they've created this practice for both of those children. And this is just some images of our children doing body-based techniques, being able to regulate their body through yoga. The picture in the middle is our children using Kitbag, and this is a Kitbag that was created by International Futures Forum. It's a tool that we use lots for connection, naming emotions and feelings. We were first introduced to it by our friends and colleagues at Children First. And you can see in that image of the little boy and the little girl is that they're actually holding a feelings card, which has got a colour on it. And they go around in their group and they pick the colour that they're feeling today, and they tell us why they're feeling that. So again, they're articulating their feelings. And you might just be able to see in that image that there's a little wooden stick there. That's a talking stick. And if you're holding the talking stick, nobody else gets to speak. So you get to take turns, you get to practice the art of listening. And you can see that that's two children round about the age of 4 able to do that and to pass that on to each other. And in this gorgeous picture of our wee one on the right-hand side, who's practicing our mindfulness, who is in a Zen-like state at this moment in time. And I think that's wonderful, that actually that is a child who is able to understand our body, feel anxieties in our body, and have the techniques to relax her body. And the third part of our daring ventures was to think about articulation. How do we share this with more people? We have done lots of work to create space to share our knowledge with our families. We do family and community workshops. We've been doing lots of them through COVID. We have actually created a Daring Ventures programme for our families. That has been so important to us. We come together once every 2 months. We take the topics that the team are learning about and we try to bring that and make that accessible for our parents, again, to help them to think deeper about their relationship with their children, because ultimately all we're there to do is to support the way in which they want to raise their children. And it's been absolutely fascinating through the whole Daring Ventures that so many people think they're coming on to talk about children. Our team think they're there to talk about children as the context within their job. Parents think they're coming on to talk about their children, but actually lots of our discussions end up talking about us as human beings, the adults. Okay, I'm now recognizing that's why that's happened in my childhood. Do you think maybe that's why I am doing this with my child? People are having those moments to think deeper about, again, things that they just thought were normal. And I put that in inverted commas because it's what they were used to. So it has created some really fascinating conversation. And I wanted to highlight that just last month we had Sue come along with Suzanne to talk to our parents about a play-based kindergarten and to talk about the benefits of play in early years and extending that. And actually many of our parents highlighted back to us, we didn't even know that that was a possibility. We hadn't even thought about that. And what that really highlighted to me is, unless you're in this sector, you're operating in this sector, you just kind of follow the norm. You just kind of go back to say, well, I went to school when I was 4, I went to school when I was 5, so that just must be what you do. People don't know that there's alternative option. And I think that's really important that we're getting the work that Sue and Kate and the rest of the team Upstart are doing. We get that out into our families. We give parents information so that they can make decisions themselves. We need to inform them of the options that are out there. And I just wanted to show some images of how we're just loving our little ones. How, that talk about, can you offer love to children? The answer to that is absolutely yes. You can fall in love with a child and those children fall in love back. And there is nothing unprofessional about it. It is absolutely steeped in humanity. Those children there who might be away from their parents 10 hours in a day have no understanding that we get paid for the job that we do. They absolutely believe that we are family and we treat them accordingly. And we steep all of our practice and all of our policies in thinking about how we're going to love those children, how we're going to meet their emotional needs. And very quickly, I'm conscious of my time, for our team, we do lots of things before our team start with us, before they join us. We do a 4-week connection programme. I am happy to share this with anybody that would want to speak to us afterwards. I know Donna and Charlene would be too. Just again, to help them think, they might be coming into real culture change when they join Lullaby Lane. How do we help them to embed into the way in which we are working? How do we get them to meet with who are going to be their key children? Just understanding again that we need to think, our team are starting very early in the morning, 7:15 in the morning. We need to think about ways in which we can help them to regulate their body. We do lots about their wellness as well. We've appointed a new health and wellbeing coordinator who is really going to take our team through self-care. How do they practice that? How do they build techniques themselves? And I just want to end then, and my apologies if I have went over in time. It's very hard to talk about this in a very short time. I just wanted to end with voices from our Lullaby Lane community. Just 3 phrases here. When the team understand the importance of play, they make the children and families feel safe, and that builds confidence to let the children take risks and develop their own learning in a way that's right for them. Including our families in Daring Ventures sessions, it's been so important to share this knowledge with parents. They have the right to know about attachment, giving the children the best start in life. And the last comment and quote is from one of our parents at a parents' evening this week that our team held for children that are going to school. Mum says that she feels safe when she drops her child off. It's like dropping her off with family. And that is ultimately the environment and the culture that we want to create at Lullaby Lane, which is one of family, which is one of emotional security and safety. And then they can go and have those daring ventures and explore and play and think creatively and all the things that I know Cameron's going to speak to you about. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Sue and Kate, for inviting me along.